If I could turn back time and remap out how I was going to balance the trade skills of my character, I would have put Woodworking and Enchanter onto the same character. At the moment I've got a Woodworker, Clothier and Blacksmith all on the same Dunmer, and I've managed to get most of them close to max on around level 26, but when it comes to managing inventory space and other stuff like that, it would have been nice just to have another character that I could have moved that onto. My Enchanter is currently sitting on level 43, and when you have a look at the enchanting part of this video you'll see why. I haven't put a big drive into getting that character maxed out because it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of work to do. You're going to find also too a lot of the woodworking information in this video mirrors what you've seen in the blacksmith and clothier video if you've seen that already. If you haven't, still going to be useful stuff there for you. Go and have a look, and I've short bullet pointed a lot of the things that I've covered in there, but if you want more detailed information on how to really get the most out of your woodworking skill, I strongly recommend that you take a look at the blacksmith and clothier video that's also attached. Let's do this. For all intents and purposes, woodworking is almost identical to clothier and blacksmith. The workflow is exactly the same. You've got the same window. Like blacksmith, you've got a weapon and an armor option, although armor is only ever a shield. Deconstruction, refining, improvement, research, all of that stuff, it's more or less identical. So there's not a lot of new stuff there for you if you've already started working on those skills. If you've seen my other video on blacksmithing and clothier, then I'll have covered most of the key points required to level this. But look, I'm quickly going to go over them again, just in case you haven't. First and foremost, do a big harvest right at the beginning when you're preparing to go. Get as much T1 material as you possibly can. And I've gone over that extensively, but there's also a link coming up here as well that's going to show you, or at least give you some tips and a heads up on how to go out there and do that. Also stealing as well, although finding wooden items to steal doesn't tend to be as easy as armor. Look for bowyers, and there are stores that sell bows and shields and things like that that tend to be mingled in with other weapons or other armor. So grab that stuff, break it down as well, and stockpile it in the bank. In terms of the sort of level skill you're looking at, the level range you're looking at to max both of these skills out on the same character, you're going to be looking at around 51 to 56 points, skill points that you'll need to plow into it. Now, if you've built a strong character that can solo, that can go out and adventure, that's done a bunch of dungeons, does faction quests, if you're prepared to get off the beaten path and go to much higher levels and do sky shards, find as many of these as you can that aren't in delves. And if you're adventuring and doing a whole bunch of quests, you should be able to bring those points in at around levels 23 to 26. I'm more than confident you could get a character around that level range that's able to max out both of these skills and specialize in enchanting and woodworking. A good thing about woodworking is almost everything that you build requires absolute minimal amount of materials. Your staves and your bow only take 3 wood if you're building a level 1 bow or weapon, while your shield doubles, so you're effectively using 6. So you really want to be concentrating on building with these materials here right now. Like I said in the blacksmithing and clothier video, there's no point making a level 14 item. While you'll get a little more experience, you're going to consume substantially more materials. You're using 3 times the materials that you're using from producing a level 1 bow. You're not going to get 3 times the experience, I can almost promise you that. Deconstructing items made by another person is a good road to go down. You get more experience from deconstructing other people's work than you do for your own. One of the fortunate things about woodworking is the materials, the raws and the processed materials tend to be cheaper, substantially cheaper than metals or clothier materials. I guess because it's much smaller range of what you can make at the end of the day. So don't be afraid to invest your own money into these materials. And again too, it's very easy to do writs on all your characters by using stockpiled materials sitting in your bank. The payment is obviously you've got a chance of getting the same legendary or very high level tempers. Plus you're going to get payment for every one of those writs that you complete. You're looking at around an extra, I don't know, 2,000 gold a day just from doing woodworking writs on all 8 of your characters. For more information on how to level woodworking, I really strongly recommend you have a look at the blacksmith and clothier video. I'm bringing a link up right now which will point you towards that. And this will give you probably just more detailed information than what I've given you already, plus 1 or 2 little extras in there as well. Workflows are almost identical, so there's no point reinventing the wheel on this one. Of all the crafting skills, Enchanting is the most problematic when it comes to maxing this skill out. But before I go into the details of how to get the most experience out of the process, let's just take a quick look at exactly how Enchanting works. And this will help you understand the problems if you haven't figured them out already. Enchantment is an enhancement art. It centers around the creation of glyphs, small items which bind onto equipment such as your armor, your weapons or your jewelry, and what these glyphs do is they will add additional properties onto these items, maximizing the potential of this equipment when it comes to such things as defensibility, resistance to the elements, or adding additional damage to items. Some people may already be using these. In almost every city you go into, you're going to find there's an Enchanter store. You can go in there, you can buy glyphs and you can manually bind these. This whole side of the operation is pretty simple. However, all this equipment caps out at white quality. You're looking at the lowest quality potential glyphs that there are on the marketplace. Also, not all of the possible properties are represented when you go to the store, and this is where Enchanting as a trade skill finds its niche. Essence runes introduce properties to glyphs. Magicka, stamina, health, also shock, fire, poison, armor, all of these are added from essence runes, and you can find these anywhere in Tamriel. You can find all of the ones that I've mentioned in a tier 1 zone. You can find them in the end game areas where people adventure as well. Very, very common, easy to get, and on the cheap side when it comes to buying them from the store. Aspect runes control the quality of the glyph once it's been created. Tar, the most common, the one that you'll find everywhere in this game, will produce a white glyph which pretty much puts what you create on par with what you're going to buy in any store across Tamriel. But Jota will kick it up a step and take it up to green quality, Denata for blue, Rekuta for purple, and finally Kuta for the yellow legendary glyphs that you see in the game as well. And this is for end-game equipment. Now one thing, again, these aren't level specific. You've got as much chance of finding a Kuta glyph in, let's say, Dalmora or Stonefalls or Kanathi's Roost as you would in finding it in Craglorn or Cyrodiil or anywhere else in the game. And this in a way it keeps the quantity and the availability of these pretty high, and it puts a level of control over the price as well. Now, Potency Runes determine exactly how the properties of that Essence Rune are going to be expressed through the item that it's bound to. It will either strengthen, raise, reduce, or increase resistance to whatever the property is coming through from that Essence Rune. Also, to the particular choice of Potency Rune that you use will also determine what the item is going to be bound to. Choosing one over another will immediately bind it to armor, to jewelry, or to a weapon. Your choice of Potency Rune also directly determines what level that glyph is going to be once it's created, and this itself becomes the problem and the limiter when it comes to enchanting. Tier 1 potency stones can only be found in the Tier 1 zone, and in an ordered universe, every runestone that you find has got a 1 in 3 chance of being potency. So unless you're harvesting like a madman, you're going out there and you're trying to get as many of these things as you can, your access to these is going to be pretty limited. Now, and what that also means is if you've got a character that's crafting at a much higher level than they're adventuring, then you will be dependent on other sources for getting potency runestones that are going to help you get the most out of that process. Now, deconstruction is always an option, and the glyphs that you buy from the different stores across Tamriel can be deconstructed. But you immediately run into the same problem again. The level of the glyph that you can purchase is directly linked to the level of the zone that the store is located in. So you may have been buying glyphs in Stonefalls, for example, breaking them down to stockpile the potency runes that you need, but then as your skill advances, it pushes you to a point where you're out of the range of what you can buy in Stonefalls. You need to move to Mournhold in Deshaan in order to access the higher level glyphs. And for a while, as long as you're prepared to ride on your horse and get out there in the world and pursue your craft, then you're not going to have any problems until you hit Craglorn. And Craglorn, unless you're of the correct character level and you've done the pre-quest, you cannot get there. Your access to these runestones is immediately cut. And this highlights or demonstrates another reality about enchanting. You can't not spend money in order to move this skill along. The experience gains in enchanting, if you're not using the highest level potency runestones which you can get, is minimal. It's extremely low. It's a very, very painful skill to enchanting. And in order to be using the higher level runestones, you're going to have to move way out of your comfort zone if you've got a low level crafter, or you're going to have to focus it on your main adventuring character themselves, which is in itself a valid strategy, because there's a double incentive for you to harvest harder in the higher zones once you get out there. But you will spend money before you bring that in at level 50. You can do writs on your other characters. Now, you can't create glyphs and drop them in the bank and then use those straight away on other characters. But look, the recipes are pretty simple at the end of the day. You're going to eventually build up a very, very big stack of T1 property runes, of T1 potency runes at the end of the day. Joro, I've got 157 of them sitting here, and these are the ones most commonly used in the first tier writs. Now, when it comes to effect, it's either going to be stamina, health, or magicka. So we could drop all of our Deni, Mako, and our Oko glyphs and runes in the bank as well as all these Tar ones as well, and anybody could create glyphs out of those, and that would immediately go towards completing their writs. Also, by dropping them in the bank as well, there's a secondary component to your writ, is that you need to turn in a particular rune stone with the writ as well. And if you're following this method, then these will already be sitting in the bank. You'll be able to pick one of these up, take it down, hand it in. Your payment, not nearly as much often as it's worth, although this is one of the few, although again, you can get legendary materials back, legendary rune stones from completing a writ. The very first time I completed an enchanting writ on a low level character, I got a Kuta rune stone straight away, which is worth 6,500 at today's prices. So writs can be worth doing. Now, when it comes to deconstruction, enchanting follows the same rules as blacksmith, clothier, and woodworker. You get more experience from deconstructing other people's work than you do from deconstructing your own. How you can make this work for you is to, rather than spending money on rune stones in the same tier as yourself, and if you're in the mid-range, that's probably where they're at the most expensive. There's less people in the mid-range that are harvesting. They tend to be focusing on getting up to the high end, while in Cyrodiil and Craglorn people have more time to harvest, and the runes obviously are more common because there's more people in that level range. You may be better off picking up a whole bunch of potency runes at the very, very top end of the game. Gather a bunch of Tar or Jajota runestones that you've got in your stockpile, and then grab a whole bunch of essence runes that you've got, put them in an email, in the mail, and then send them all off to a maxed out enchanter in your guild. Ask them to make a whole bunch of glyphs for you, mail them back, and then progressively bust them all down for the experience boost. Now, unlike blacksmith, clothier, and woodworker, you can get materials back if you are breaking things down outside your level range. The odds of success for enchanting seems to be low when it comes to returning materials. However, when you do return something, you tend to get quite a lot. You don't always just get one thing from deconstructing something, you get two. However, you will get substantial experience from breaking down those runes, those glyphs that have been created by other players for you, and again, you have a reasonable chance of getting a reasonable percentage of those materials back. So you accumulate them, save them up, and again, when you've got enough of them, send them off to another person. This is how I got the biggest spike in experience points or in inspiration for enchanting. It's gotten me over 25 to 20 to maybe even 30 levels in the game. Finally, do your writs. Do them every day. Do your enchanting writs the second that they become available. It will remain the single most valuable operation that you can perform towards the goal of completing and maxing out enchanting. It will give you better return than anything else you could possibly do, any one single operation, as far as gaining inspiration and moving towards maxing this otherwise painful skill out. And that concludes woodworking and enchanting. Look, if you got anything of value out of this video, please take a moment of your time just to click the like link underneath this video. They all add up, and it shows me that I'm actually giving something useful out to the rest of the community out there, and it's much appreciated. Also, look, if you like what you're seeing, then please by all means subscribe, and that way it'll encourage me to keep bringing you the best content that I can bring you on a regular basis. Thank you for watching this video. Please take the time to watch more.